Okay, so not too long ago, Microsoft actually released a statement that on November 1st, 2020, the ability to run or create SharePoint 2010 workflows for existing tenants will be removed. And so, like I mentioned just now, in 2020, SharePoint 2010 workflows will be retired. And if you're a new tenant, actually these workflows will be turned off for you starting August 1st, 2020. So for now, Milad, what is the impacts of SharePoint 2010 expiration for new and existing customers?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, what's the impact actually? So, as you know, the SharePoint, as my colleague has already mentioned, SharePoint Workflow 2010 is going to be expired soon. Actually, for the new tenant that you want to create it, okay, from this Saturday, the 1st of August, so it will be deprecated and there is no SharePoint 2010 workflow on the new tenant that you will create it. So, what's the impact? Also, they will be deprecated and stop the engine on all of the SharePoint Office 365 in 1st of November. So what can be impacting to the customer? Actually, maybe the customer have, for example, lots of workflow that is already designed on SharePoint 2010, SharePoint Workflow 2010. So actually, they cannot use anymore because the engine is already stopped and is deprecated by Microsoft. So there is no choice. Actually, we need also to migrate all of them, the workflow, existing workflow, to new replacement, whether it can be a SharePoint, whether it can be a Nintex or Power Automate. So it depends actually.
Okay, that's great actually. So moving forward, what are your options available for existing SharePoint 2010 workflow users? Over here we'll be talking about this SharePoint Workflow 2010 to Power Automate and also to convert SharePoint Workflow 2010 to Nintex ecosystem. Robin, can you share with us a bit more about Power Automate and its benefits?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Jonathan. So allow me to share my screen lah. So at least we will all be on the same page. Give me 1 second. Okay. I'm going to explain more on Power Automates here. So Power Automates, as you all know, is one of the functions or module in it bundled together previously with O365, right? But now also is bundled towards the M365, right? So Power Automate, previously the name is called Microsoft Flow. So for a lot of us that is very familiar with, past few years, very familiar with the workflow side in Microsoft ecosystem, it is called Flow lah. But recently, like a few months back, Microsoft decided to change it to Power Automate because for standardization of all their naming convention lah. So they have like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and things like that, which they package it as a Power Platform. Okay, so coming back to Power Automate, as right, sorry, as right now we have SharePoint workflow, right? So SharePoint workflow is something built into SharePoint. Now this is a high contrast to Power Automate. So Power Automate is an independent system, right? It sits still within the whole Microsoft ecosystem, but it is separate from any particular function. So with that, that's where the beauty comes in, right? Being as a separate workflow means like there is a lot of things that you can do with it. You can call various part within O365, right? Let's say, for example, you want email, you can easily call email functions out, right? You want SharePoints, you want to do some SharePoint manipulations, you can easily call SharePoint out. So, and then the way Microsoft built for us is is a low-code approach, right? Low-code means like later on the next slides, we will look at what are the key users within an organization can use it. So Power Automate is a model business process and it's an automated workflow across your applications and services. Services here, it could be Yammer, for example. For example, you want something from that you store in your SharePoint to be automatically posted to Yammer, example lah. Or if you want some announcement, some notification to be posted to Microsoft Teams, another wonderful apps, you can do that as well. Power Automate has data connectors, more than 275 pre-built-in connectors, and of course, custom connectors. So connectors is something that you want Power Automate to talk to other different systems, right? Yammer is one example. Microsoft Teams is another example. SharePoint is another example, plus many other connectors as well, right? Of course, Power Automate is within the whole ecosystem that includes a strong enterprise governance and security. And lastly, you can easily scale up your Power Automate if you want to into Azure and custom logics site platform. Okay. Last year, with through Gartner report, again, a little bit introduction about Gartner. So Gartner every year, they will produce reports. They will produce a lot of surveys from the whole industries, report on very specific functions. In this particular case is for enterprise low-code application platform. And last year, as you can see, Microsoft is in the leader quadrant, right? For enterprise low-code application platform. So you know that this is what Microsoft is heading. This is what Microsoft is spending money into it, and also this is what the industry expert is also giving to Microsoft. So in order to have a very reliable platform, Microsoft Power Automate has a global footprint all over the world. As you can see in this chart, everywhere, in America, in Europe, in Asia, Central Asia, it is everywhere, right? So what that translates to us means of the sustainability and also on the security side, it is very secure, very sustainable, and then it is there, right? You have multiple redundancies all over the region. So Power Automate, it is designed for everyone, right? In an organization, example, end user. End user can easily go in and start building simple functions, if you may, right? Simple, for example, notifications, you can do that, right? You can build notifications, you can build how the flows work, you can build approval. And then when you want to scale up, when you want to have more complicated steps, for example, approval with multiple level that goes across the organizations, experienced developer can use Power Apps as well, right? IT admin can easily monitor the Power Apps usage, right? Who is using it, who is not using it, and they can do a lot of maintenance into that as well. So again, Power Apps is for user across the board, right? Now, what can Power Automate do? So I'm going to go through real quick all of these screens. I'm sure everybody here Power Automate's features all over the news already with Microsoft. So one is automation at scale. You can easily scale up efficiently and automations across your organizations, right? Secondly, it is a highly secure, integrated automations at every level, right? You can accelerate your productivity, so you can focus more on strategic works, right? And lastly, Microsoft keep on adding and infuse with the functionality of Power Automate with AI and some other module on a yearly basis. Every year they add in new things. Later on, there's a slide where I will go through some of the various updates that they have. So what are the attributes of Power Automate? What can we do with it? What are the actions? First, is they have 100 of triggers, like earlier mentioned, like over 200 triggers. Triggers means like you can easily connect to various things, right? You can share flows like documents. You can collaborate and build up your flows and distribute your flows, templates all over to your organizations. What this translates is that if you create a flow, you can easily export and import it. You can replicate all the functions. Again, that's translate to much more easier for you to deploy later on. Seamlessly integration across Microsoft stack with Power Apps, Power BI, Teams, O365, Dynamics, Azure. Is an extensible model. So Microsoft creates Power Automate so that when there is new functionality, you can easily scale up. That's the idea of Power Automate. You can have thousands of actions, data connections, various data connections to connect to everything, everywhere connectors. It can be internal to your O365 or it can be external. For example, if you want digital signature, easily connected to DocuSign or Adobe Sign. If you want other database, you can easily connect to, for example, of course, SharePoint. It can be scaled down to Excel, or it can be higher up into SQL, right, or ERP and other many other connectors. It has built-in data platform with Power Automate. It has a CDS, common data store, to store your application data, right? And lastly, it has intelligence automations that you can leverage on AI Builder to process a lot of unstructured data and continually to improve other processes. So my last slide here is just have a little bit of a taste of what are the new capabilities of Power Automate. Of course, Microsoft is keeping on adding new things into it. First is intelligent flows with AI Builder. Means like you can have more functions to integrate together with your backend processes, right? AI Builder is a whole separate huge topics that maybe we can cover later on. We can have a flow checker, repair tips. This is more like when you create a flow, it will be smart enough to tell you, hey, you know, this particular section maybe is not correct. Maybe you should do something else, right? It has authoring improvements, means a lot more features that you can build into flows. You can have integration with Teams. So in Teams, you can activate automate. Azure API Manager, again, is scalable into Azure Stack Site, where in Azure, the creativity is unlimited, right? And lastly, to create business process flow through Dynamics. Very easy, step-by-step, to have all the tools available. So as far as customer side, you don't have to worry too much on the technical issue. And it's cross the board for end users, for developers, and also for IT admin side. Okay, great. Jonathan, I think that's a very quick introductions of what Power Automate is, and back to you.
All right, thank you very much. So next up, I think we can get Milad to explain a bit more about this Nintex ecosystem and its benefits.
Okay, thank you, Robin, for your sharing. So let's do the Nintex part. So just let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, so can you see my screen, Jonathan? Okay, sure. So actually another choice, okay, that can be replaced with the Microsoft SharePoint Workflow 2010. It can be an Nintex. So one of them. And another one that is already my colleague is explaining is the Power Apps and the Microsoft Flow. So, okay, first I will go through the Nintex. What is the Nintex? Nintex actually is the market leader in the intelligent process automation for the enterprises. It's already recognized as a first number one in workflow and content automation, as a leader in the digital business platforms, and first number in a strategy for the digital process automation way. So this Nintex is founded in Australia in 2006. So far, over 7,500 user enterprise customer is around the world. 90 countries is already use this Nintex. So these are just quick introduction. So what Nintex can do? Nintex is more than just creation, the workflow and the forms. So as you can see, okay, maybe most of you have a many different third-party application. It can be a CRM, it can be a ERP, it can be, for example, SharePoint or Portal, legacy system, all Office apps. So all these systems can connect to the share Nintex actually. The Nintex, the first step that is provided and the first tools that is provided for you, they call it map and manages process. So by help of this map and manage process, before to create automation, before you create the forms, you can understand and create the plan and the map of the project, a map of the workflow and the process that you have it in the company. So you can create it. And after that, there's a different tools come in the scenario. So we have the form and mobile workflow automation. We have the document automation and e-signature, or we call it document generation. And another coolest part that is come with the Nintex is the robotic process automation, or RPA, that is nowadays is become most popular. And after that, this third step, okay, once you create the workflow, automate the process in your company, you can process optimization. You can do the process optimization with the Nintex analytics. You can see the process, you can monitor it, and you can improve it. Also, Nintex gives you ability to use and work with the API. There is some pre-built connector, okay, that is already connected, for example, to the ERP system, CRM, and SharePoint. If there is no connector, you can use the Nintex API. It can connect directly to the any kind of API and call the API and work with the data or that system. So with the help of Nintex, you can improve the way people work through the process management automation. As you can see here, this one is kind of the process automation, or the first step. You can understand your process, you can do the planning, create your process, understand how much actually with this way you can estimate how much does it cost for which level of the process in your company, and after that you can reduce that cost for that process. Once you understand, for example, the most process inside one SOP, you have the different level, different part. For example, you will send some approval level. By help of the process management and automation, you can understand which part of this process flow it takes more or it takes longer. So you can reduce it and optimize it later. Another part, okay, you can have the Nintex Workflow Cloud. So Nintex not only can be connected to SharePoint as an Nintex for Office 365, create the forms and also work with the SharePoint directly, create the workflow for the SharePoint. Also, you can have as a anonymous part, you can have, they call it Nintex Workflow Cloud. So Nintex Workflow Cloud, there is a lots of connector that they can be connected to many third-party application or called the APIs. So by help of that, the user can access to that form that you already created with Nintex Workflow Cloud without any license for the user end user. And they can submit the form in an anonymous way. So easily you can manage, you can quickly automate it. As you can see, easily you can drag and drop. Is very actually user friendly in terms of the drag and drop. And you can create dynamically workflow and optimize it, that process flow that you already have. So this one is the overall view what Nintex can do. First, Nintex can manage the process. Second, they can automate the process. After that, we can optimize it. So by help of managed process, you can do the planning, you can mapping the process and sharing, send it to the other employee, discuss on the process flow. Once you finalize the process flow and optimize the process flow, Then you can go for the automation. The automation part is include the forms, workflow, and document generation. So you can create one form and you can send it through the approval level. Once that form is already finished, so you want to generate one document based on that form that you already created. For example, this form has a lots of field inside, but you want to park some of these field inside one template in, for example, Word document. And you want to create that document and park it as your reference. So that one we will call it document generation. After that, you can optimize it. You can monitor the performance of the workflow. You can monitor based on the analytics that you can put it on the Nintex workflow. You can analyze it, and after that you can improve it easily because you can understand which part it takes too long for this process flow, and lots of kind of analytics you can have it inside the Nintex. So Nintex, as I already mentioned, there's a lots of extension or the pre-built connector that you can use it and connect to different system. So okay, let me go through another one. So the main part of the Nintex, you can create an advanced workflow, you can do the process intelligence, and you can have the mobile app for that form and the workflow that you created. We can have it the modern form. The modern form, once you create the forms, actually, you do not need to design the form for two different platforms. So you do not need to worry, okay, if I design the form, so how it can be looks like in the mobile application or the tablet is we call it responsive design. So you do not need to worry about the designing the form. And after that we can have the document generation. So this one is related how we can easily create a workflow. Okay, for example, for the generate documents. So or you can have the signature as because Nintex is a full package. Okay, it comes in the full package. Also, Nintex have the digital signature. They call it Nintex Sign. The backend of the Nintex Sign is using the Adobe Sign actually, and the licensing actually is much more cheaper than Adobe or the DocuSign also, and is illegal. You can use it for your digital signature. So this one is another look and feel for SharePoint Nintex workflow that is embedded inside the SharePoint, and we call it Nintex Office 365. As you can see, easily you can drag and drop from the uh, action sidebar. There's a lots of action predefined that you can use those without writing any single line of code. So this one is related to the form, how the form can be looks like. We have also lots of different control on the form. So you can easily drag and drop, okay, the border, add a button, add a field, add a text box, multi line of text. All you can put it inside the form and you can put a different action or different validation for this form. It's very easy to use for the forms. So the coolest feature that the Nintex have, okay, you can have it the Nintex form for the mobile. Not only you can publish the form for the mobile, also you can create the application. You can have the APK file for the Android, and you can have the iOS file for the Apple one. So both of these files can be published inside the Android market or iOS market. Some of the company they looking, okay, they want that app specific for that company. They can change the logo and they can create the APK and publish it through the markets. And from the markets, the user easily they can download it and use that one. So, okay, how Nintex can help, okay, and overcome with the lack of, for example, workflow 2010, if the workflow 2010 is already deprecated. Actually, the most use case scenario that, for example, company uses from the SharePoint workflow 2010, they're using for assigning the permission. There is one action for assigning the permission. For example, if you upload one document inside the document library, you want to run the workflow and assign one individual item to that individual item one permission. For example, Milad can access only to this document once it's uploaded. The other cannot see this document. So this one is the most common scenario that usually the customer using for the workflow 2010, because of that this one is not available on the workflow 2013. So what is the replacement? As my colleagues already mentioned, the Power Automate has the ability to add each individual item, add the permission to each individual item. Also, Nintex has this ability. So it can add each individual, the permission to each individual item also. So other than that, okay, Nintex can create lots of process flow for many kind of business, for the different use cases. For example, for the contract, you can have the legal drawings. You can have the proposal generation. For example, code to cash, you can manage the large deal approval. So you can have the RFI or RFP. All it can be managed by the Nintex. There's a lots of things that you can do with Nintex, but these are is a as an overall overview and the summary for the Nintex. What Nintex can be do it actually can do it. Okay, as Microsoft is already created one tools. Okay, is the assessment tools that tools can be run through the tenant that you already have and create the reports and mention how many workflow is already created on your tenant and which version is that. So with help of that one, we can create a report using SharePoint Modernization Scanner. They call it a scanner for legacy workflow. So we can have one kind of comprehensive report and complete report about our tenant workflow, how many workflow is existing in the tenant, and a lots of detail also. The step two, so we need to do some consultation. We need to understand actually uh, for what purpose you use it, the Microsoft SharePoint Workflow 2010. So we need to understand the scope, how many level is that, what is used for. Once we understand all of them, we need to come up with the scope of work and the mandate that is needed for the migration effort. And also we need to check whether there is any downtime for the customer or not, or how frequently the customer use that SharePoint Workflow 2010. Once we understand that one, we come up with the scope solution. So based on the discussion that we have it with the customer, whether they want to migrate it to the Power Automate or the Nintex, and based on that scope, we will confirm it and execute it. And once we develop it, then we can have the follow-up with the customer and we can do for the project closure. So these are the overall steps that we can help our customer or help the company to migrate it and migrate it from SharePoint 2010, SharePoint Workflow 2010 to other platform that is supported already.
Okay, that's great actually. We talked about this SharePoint modernization scanner for legacy workflow. Could anyone care to explain what this SharePoint modernization scanner is?
Okay, I will pass it to the Robin for explaining this one.
Okay. Thank you, Milad. Thank you, Jonathan. So, allow me to explain a little bit lah for the step one. Let me share my screen real quick. Yeah. So the first step is to create the reports, right? In using SharePoint modernization scanner tools lah. So the purpose of this report is pretty much to know how many workflow do you have in your SharePoint Online. Now, these tools is actually only applicable for SharePoint Online. So for those of you guys that have SharePoint on-premise, there is another tools to do similar similar job role lah. So for SharePoint modernization scanner, I'm going to post this link into our group chat, right? So we all later on, you guys can go ahead and use it. Of course, those of you that already know what workflows you guys have in your system, then this could be just an option for you lah. Or if you want to use these tools for other things, because just side note, these tools also can check if in your tenant, are you using InfoPath, for example, in your classic SharePoint site, how many pages of your SharePoint is using classic? You can also check for publishing portals. You can check for wikis, web parts. So besides workflows, it has a lot more functions. But for these particular purposes, we are only going to focus on legacy workflows. Yeah. Okay, so Microsoft really did a good job. First, of course, I'm going to scroll through from the URL. You guys can go in and do the same thing. First, you prepare for the scan, right? It's as easy as you download the tools, right? The tools is executable, which I already downloaded, right? Once you click the tools, there's no installations needed, and it pops up with an interface, right? There are a few ways for you to log in to authenticate to your online server. The recommended one is through Azure AD, right? Azure AD token, which the instruction is inside here. You guys can go through it as long as you have permission into your Azure site. You can create a token, and using that token, you can run your whole tenant SharePoint's workflows. Or you can always use our username and password method, right? Very straightforward. You put in your username password, which is the global admin, right? Or a user that has permission into that particular site. So that's why Microsoft recommend to use the AD apps methods, because if you use the Azure site, regardless whether you have permission or not into that particular sites that have the workflow, it will run everything, right? But if you only use username and password, make sure that you do have permission to all your sites that you want to run a report to, right? So you go through the whole exercise and click on next. Is pretty much straightforward. Yeah. Permission review, which we have covered, and then you would key in the right permission structure and authenticate. And once you finish, what it will give you, the output is a lot of reports, right? One of the reports is a scanner report, which I'm going to highlight here. You guys can also take a look at other reports. Other reports is more towards the details of the scanner reports. So within this scanner reports is in CSV format, Excel format. So, and it already pre-formatted very nicely for you with a lot of various charts to help you to make sure you make the right to get the right informations. The first one at the top side, I'm going to go through real quick. It will tell you what version of workflows do you have in your tenant, whether it's 2010 or 2013, right? And then the next thing I want to highlight is the upgradability. So these particular reports mainly focus on upgrade to Power Automate. But that doesn't mean that you can't use these reports for Nintex, right? You can easily use it as well. It's just that some of the key result is mainly for Power Automate. So in these upgradable sections, it will show you, for example, 100%. 100% means like whatever current actions in your version 2010 or 2013, you can easily upgrade into Power Automate, right? So there you go. Microsoft really help you into that. Of course, it will not upgrade for you. It will just tell you the features that currently you're using. It is also available in Power Automate. So next thing I want to focus on is on the right-hand side, which it tells you exactly where the workflows are, right? Of course, if you are the IT admin and you have full control of your tenant and you know exactly all the workflows, you probably just kind of like glance through and know, hey, yeah, those are the workflows that I have, right? But for those, some of the users probably they don't know who created workflows in which sites, things like that, then this report will definitely help. It lists down all the workflows and it also lists down all the sites for you, right? So overall, in a nutshell, this report is really, really good. Microsoft provided for us. We can know exactly what type of workflows is available, right? Whether it is upgradable or not. And if it is less than 100, it doesn't mean that you can't move it to Power Automate. It's just that you might need to have further customization, right? Or work around. Or maybe upgrade using Nintex, right? There's a lot of solutions available. It's just that we will have to sit down and work together through the whole processes.
Okay, so this is actually SRKK's project references for our SharePoint Intranet and EDMS, which is our Electronic Document Management System. We also have it for this Power Platform and Forms and Workflow. If you guys have any questions, you can let us know right now. You can even raise your hand. There's this small hand button on your taskbar inside Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Jonathan, maybe I'll add a few more while waiting for those that have questions. Let me go to another slide. Actually, yeah, this slide. So the end of workflows or Microsoft to discontinue SharePoint Workflow 2010 is real, right? And it's happening. Of course, at present, it's only impact Workflow 2010 online version, right? We are not talking about on-premise. For on-premise, Microsoft did put up notifications. They will continue to support Workflow 2010 and 2013 for on-premise version. For those of us that are on-premise, it's good lah. Yeah. But for those that are using SharePoint Online, yeah, we really need to take a look at Workflows 2010. Right now, so far, Microsoft don't have an actual end date for Workflows 2013. But we do suggest we also have to start thinking about 2013 as well lah. So in this chart is a very high level summary of the problem. Of course, we have two dates. One is this Saturday, where for all new tenants that's created, we cannot use SharePoint 2010, right? Now, the idea is for us to migrate, to move to the cloud version, Power Automate or Nintex is what do we do with our current SharePoint 2010 workflow, correct? Or SharePoint 2013, right? Can those workflow be streamlined or be changed so that it can accommodate to Power Automates or Nintex? Or it's pretty much like one-to-one. Right now, I'm using this 2010 for these particular functions. Now I want to have the exact functions, right? So this will trigger different kinds of questions, right? If the question is yes, currently we are heavily using this SharePoint 2010 for example, to copy file or to transfer file or to trigger some file processes, then yes. So the simplest answer is either I will have to build everything using Power Automates or Nintex, or if I need help, I don't have time to do it. That's why you can engage like us, right, SRKK, in order to help you to deploy it faster. Of course, the hard date is November 1st lah, right? So how there's two options. Earlier, Milad explained a little bit about Nintex, right? Power Automates, why you would choose Power Automates and why you would choose Nintex. Again, it comes back to the questions to your organizations, like what kind of action, what kind of plan your workflow should be doing, right? If your workflow is only revolve around Office 365 or M365, revolve means like all my actions, right? All the functions that I need will be within O365, M365, then Power Automate could be the best fit. Example, I want to save data. I have a form. Now, this form is only for internal use. It's not for external, right? It's not meant for external user. Then we can use Power Automate. However, for example, I have a lot of forms, but those forms, I will need public people to access to it, right? Or I will need my my vendor or other people that is not part of my tenant to access to it. Then probably Nintex would be a better fit, right? Because Nintex has much more functionality on top of Power Automate. So some of this consideration needs to be decided whether in order to determine what kind of solutions you want to use, right? Either Power Apps, either Power Automate or Nintex ecosystems. And of course, the timeline is, again, we have a hard timeline, November 1st. And it takes time. Let's say you have a lot of workflows. It does take time to migrate before November 1st. So again, preparation, planning has to be done earlier, right? Yeah. So this is pretty much an overall we have the problem and what are our outcomes. So do give us, if you have any questions, you can ask or you can type in, or definitely you can email to us later on. We'll be happy to sit down and work together with you to find the solution.
We hope that this webinar session has provided you with valuable insights on how you can replace the SharePoint 2010 workflows.